Hi, welcome to another episode of Look Ma No Hands. My name is Linda, and in my podcast I talk about all things yarn and crochet, sometimes art and painting, what I've been reading, what I've been watching, and whatever has been happening in my life, keeping me busy. So this week, what I've been working on with crochet is finishing up the hooded baby afghan from last week, picking up some old projects that I started a while ago. I've been kind of working through the Granny Square book that I purchased last spring, just trying to test out some of the motifs in the book. The one that I'm kind of obsessed with right now is the Dazzling Octagon. I really like the way the shape kind of starts out in the center and just grows out and turns into a nice little square. I'm using yarn that I received for my birthday a couple years ago. The guys have kind of been on my case about when am I going to use up the yarn, so I kind of picked through it, and in usual Linda fashion, picked out the colors, kind of grouped them together to make this octagon pattern. It requires like 10 different colors, so I picked through and kind of curated my own little kit from the yarns that the guys got for me, and yeah, it's turning out really nice. I can work up about 4 squares for each grouping of 10 yarns that I picked out, 10 colors that I picked out, so it'll take a while. I can finish between like 1 and 2 squares per day, so I'm just kind of pacing myself through the project, and I have no real timeline on when I plan to finish it. Obviously, it's taken me 2 years to even figure out what pattern I want to use, so yeah, it's definitely a work in progress, if you want to call that, but I'm excited to be getting into it, and I'm going to be calling it like my birthday blanket or my birthday project. I doubt that it'll be finished in time for my birthday, which is next month, but yeah, it's just something that I've kind of finally landed on and decided like this is the project for this particular yarn. It was 2 I don't want to say kits because it wasn't really a kit, but bundles, I guess you could say, of yarn, one of which my husband and my son purchased for me, and then my bestie from middle school had gotten me yarn that same year for my birthday. They just kind of picked some stuff off of a list that I had of things that I had shopped around on Amazon for, so I got lucky that year that all of my guys got yarn for me, and now I'm finally getting around to working it up and making something very special out of it. So I don't know exactly how big the blanket will be. Each square works out to be about maybe 7 inches, so I think I've got like 10 groupings of yarn from the packs that they sent me, and so like 4 squares per grouping, so that'll come up to be like 40 squares. I'm not sure like how big that would be for the blanket, but I have some other yarn that's the same weight from my collection that I'm kind of adding in to hopefully make it a decent size throw. Not exactly sure like how I'm gonna lay out the squares and things like that, but I have a little bit of an idea, just because, like I said, each grouping of 10 colors makes roughly 4 squares, so I'm thinking like doing it as rows of the 4 squares from each color group, then kind of scattering in solid squares from the same book. I'm using the double crochet granny square from that same book, the one that I used for the Sudoku blanket. Different weight yarn is making much smaller squares. I'm using a DK 3-weight yarn, so the squares are coming out substantially smaller than when I used 4-weight yarn. I'm using a smaller hook, using a size G hook, 4mm hook, as opposed to the 6mm J hook that I used for the Sudoku blanket. So yeah, it's definitely going to be substantially smaller than that crazy large Sudoku blanket that I made. But I'm excited because it's going to be very colorful and just very bold. I guess color is just like my thing. I don't do a lot of neutral anything. This is going to be like rainbow explosion of colors on this blanket. So it's exciting. The other project that I started, I kind of have like scattered efforts this week. I have been going through the yarn that I have, just kind of seeing the collection kind of dwindling, and getting excited about having worked through a bunch of what I had collected. Right now I'm doing another circle to square motif of the pattern that I really enjoy, using gray and yellow. So the circle part is gray, and then squaring it off, I'm using a yellow yarn, kind of like a pale yellow, kind of pastel. The squares will probably end up being stitched into a baby blanket. Haven't really decided yet exactly what I'm going to do with the squares, but I'm kind of leaning towards baby blanket. I think it'll be a really cute blanket with kind of the neutral colors. So yeah. And when I say neutral, I just mean like not the bold, crazy, in your face rainbow colors that I use. And it's just going to turn out to be a really simple geometric pattern. Yeah, again, kind of excited about it. It's using up a good amount of the yarn that I have in the collection, and it will be just one more blanket to add to whatever I decide to eventually do with all of my crochet projects that I have, whether I donate them or sell them or gift them. I'm not really sure, but I'm coming up with quite the collection of finished projects with no home. So yeah, I don't know. I definitely enjoy crocheting. I just have to find somebody that would like to give a home to all of my finished projects, or some of my finished projects, I guess you could say. So that's all of what I've been working on this week. Just trying to stay busy in this terribly cold weather that we're experiencing right now. Moving on to what I've been reading. I finished 4 books this week, 3 of which were juvenile fiction, one of which was a romance book. So yeah, the first one that I read really kind of creeped me out. It was juvenile fiction. It's called What Lives in the Woods by Lindsay Currie. I'm so susceptible to like ghost stories and like kind of the suggestion of like entities beyond what we can see. And so when I started reading this book, I've always been a person that loves ghost stories, but then after reading them or watching like a scary movie, I get so creeped out. This book is about a family that is from Chicago, and the father is, I guess you could say, like an architect who was hired to help renovate like an old mansion in Michigan. He hears all of like the local legends of this mansion being haunted, and like the woods surrounding the mansion have all of like their own like legend stories and things like that. And he doesn't let his teenage children know that where they're going is considered to be haunted by all of the locals. They Everybody in town kind of wants to avoid the place. The people that own the mansion want the renovations done to try and use it as an event space. People don't want to come to the place because they think that it's haunted, and the hopes that the owners have is that by doing the renovations, people will see the potential that the space has for events. So the dad is very motivated to try and get this job done because he thinks that if he creates the atmosphere that the owners are looking for, then it will bode well for his business, and he'll be able to get more work doing bigger renovations, blah, blah, blah. The kids are both disappointed that they're being whisked away for the summer because the girl wanted to go to a writer's workshop, and the boy wanted to attend a basketball camp. Those plans are being put on hold so that they can go to this town in Michigan with their family so their dad can get this work done. When they find out about the house being haunted, they start experiencing all kinds of crazy things. Light bulbs shattering for no reason. The girl thinks she hears them like someone calling her name from like the distance. Like she doesn't see anyone, but she hears her name being called. Strange things are happening throughout the house with like stuff crashing in the ballroom, and just a lot of unsettling things. The girl meets one of the local kids in town, and he's like, whoa, you're staying there? Like, that's crazy. Like, nobody ever lasts very long staying there. A lot of people have tried, and like, yeah, it's just not, I wouldn't go there. And so she's like, gosh, everybody's so freaked out by this place. Like, what is going on? She comes to find out like the history behind the home, and she's a big Agatha Christie fan. So with what she knows of like Agatha Christie stories and like hauntings, and like you have to like satisfy the entities and all of that, she tries to figure out a way to calm the restless spirits of the house. And in doing so, they kind of uncover what they think is causing the spirits to continue to haunt the space. And they come up with a solution. The thing that freaked me out was just the whole like haunting thing, and like like I said, I'm so susceptible to all of that kind of stuff because I just am, I guess. I don't know, I'm just weird like that. But when she came up with her plan of how to kind of settle the restless spirits, it just kind of makes you think about like the history of old buildings and like how to kind of respect the spaces that are historical. And I just think that in itself is pretty cool. Old buildings have a lot of history to them. Like, I live in a house that's old, not terribly old, but quite a bit older than I am. And I just feel like this was a space that somebody else occupied at some point. And like, I think of all the things that I've done in the house since I've lived in it, and what the house means to me. So like thinking about like this was somebody else's home at one point, and yeah, I don't know, it just I think a lot about the past and like how it affects, you know, things moving forward. And yeah, but anyways, going back to What Lives in the Woods, it was a really fun story. Like, the characters were really well developed, and just a lot of the description of the different places in the story and things like that. It was just a really well written kids book, and I really enjoyed it. It was a fun book to read. I kind of powered through it and finished it in like 2 days. So it was definitely one that I would recommend. And then I read the story called Took by Mary Downing Hahn. I read a previous book by her just a few weeks ago. And again, it's another kind of creepy story, paranormal, otherworldly kind of stuff. It's definitely on brand for Mary Downing Hahn. She's a really good ghost story writer, and also kind of like psychological thriller kind of story. I feel like the stories that she writes aren't necessarily always ghost stories. They're more like what your conscience kind of tells you, and like cautionary tales. This particular story is about a family who moves into a town in West Virginia, and they moved because the father needed a job opportunity, or he was pursuing a job opportunity, and things just weren't really panning out for the family. The house that they bought was kind of in disrepair. They're trying to make the best of things because they moved from Connecticut to West Virginia. A lot of the local kids are picking on the children because they feel like, oh, you think you're better than us because you're from Connecticut and you're like this hoity-toity family, and the kids really just want to be left alone. If you're not going to be friends with me, then just don't bother me. Don't make my life more miserable than it already is, because things aren't as good for me as you think they are. There was just a lot of bullying going on, and like the local kids were making the new kids kind of feel very out of place and isolated. And the little girl in the story was very unhappy. She had her little doll that she kind of like retreated into the world of just her and her doll. The middle school aged boy was very ostracized. He didn't have any friend, like nobody wanted to be friends with him. They were pushing him down at recess and in gym class and just treating him really awful. And the little girl was kind of being treated the same way. Just they were not very welcome in the community. The father had a coworker who actually was quite kind to him, and when things turn bad for the family, that gentleman and his wife really step up to try and help the family and make things better for them. The title of the story being called Took, the terrible thing that happens for the family is their little girl goes missing in the woods by their house. And everyone is saying that old auntie is the one that took her. Now, old auntie is a local legend in the town. Basically, she's like a witch, almost kind of, it makes me think of like Hansel and Gretel. And the legend is just that like every 50 years, a little girl in the neighborhood goes missing, and it's old auntie that took her. And so when the little girl goes missing, the whole town believes that she was taken by old auntie. And they decide to stop trying to help look for her because it's hopeless. If old auntie took her, you'll never see her again. But when that little girl goes missing, the little girl from 50 years prior that went missing shows up as still a little girl. So that's where this is like a super creepy story of like paranormal nonsense going on. When I was listening to it, when I was reading it, I felt like it was very much a cautionary tale of like making sure that when things get tough for your family, that you kind of pull together, because if you turn on one another, then that's how people can come in and manipulate and cause you to do things that you wouldn't otherwise do. In talking, like if I was going to use this as like a teacher and talking about like just not necessarily paranormal things, but even just how like society and how we can take care of each other and look out for each other, I think was a very important theme in this story. So yeah, paranormal stuff aside, it was very much a good story to talk about coming together in hard times and taking care of each other. The boy character in the story kind of realized as things were going along that he wasn't always the best brother to his sister, that he wasn't horrible to her, but he could have done a better job of looking out for her and taking care of her, and maybe even being more kind to her and more thoughtful with her. So once things were resolved and he was able to rescue his sister, he kind of made a promise to himself that he would do a better job of taking care of her in the future. So I think it was a great story to talk about, just, you know, coming together as a family, coming together as a community, and doing what we can to make everybody's lives a little easier. So yeah, that was a good story. And then the third juvenile fiction that I read this week was called Dear Sweet Pea by Julie Murphy. Again, another really good story that I enjoyed a good deal. This story is definitely more of like realistic fiction. In the story, the family is experiencing divorce. The parents just had an event happen in their life that made being married impossible for them. And the mom in the family is a therapist, like a marriage counselor, and so she was kind of embarrassed of the fact that like her marriage had fallen apart. She felt like, how can I give advice to others when I can't even keep my own family together? And in doing so, she tried to make things as easy as possible for her teenage daughter. There just so happened to be a house available on the same street that they lived on that the dad decided to move into. He rented the property so that he could have his daughter nearby. The house even kind of resembled the house that they had been living in together as a family, so they just tried to give their daughter like a 2.0 version of her home, which sounds like, in theory, a great idea, but in practice it turned out to not be the best idea for them. And then a lot of things were happening where the dad was going to have to return to Connecticut, of all places. Like, for some reason, that seems to be the theme this week for me. I don't know how that happened, that two of the stories had families that moved from Connecticut to southern states. And then, yeah, anyways, he was going to have to move back to Connecticut to take care of some things back at his hometown. And they weren't very forthcoming to their daughter about all of the things that were happening. So she felt kind of betrayed by her parents, because to her it kind of felt like they sprung it on her that they needed to get a divorce, and then they're springing it on her that dad was going to have to move back home and to his hometown, and she just felt very lost in her family. They have kind of like a kooky neighbor that lives in the house between the two homes, and she suddenly has to leave town, and she calls on Sweet Pea, the main character, to kind of look after her house. She asks her to go in and water her house plants and take her mail in, and the woman is responsible for the advice column in the newspaper, so she tells Sweet Pea to send her whatever correspondence comes through, and Sweet Pea, being a 13-year-old kind of busybody when she's told to do this, starts reading some of the letters that are being sent in for the advice column, and gets this brilliant idea that she's going to start responding as though she is the advice columnist. And that kind of blows up in her face a little bit. She's not horrible at it, but she finds out that it may not have been the best interest to answer some of the correspondence that was coming in, because she recognized the people that were writing in for advice. She kind of figured out who they were. And as the story unfolds, the elderly neighbor who is the advice columnist kind of tells her that, yeah, that wasn't a great idea. I have kind of like a code of ethics when it comes to that I don't respond to people who I can identify in the letters. And she's like, yeah, maybe I should have done the same thing, because this did not work out in my favor. There's a lot of real life drama that happens in this story that I just felt was like really kind of cool, the way the author addressed it and kind of centered the teenage character as the one to kind of do all of this self-discovery of like, everybody has drama, and like we can all think that our problems are like the worst in the world, which I think a lot of teenagers do think that their problems are like worse than everybody else's. And then when they kind of get their heads out of their rear ends, they realize like we all kind of have the same problems. And nobody's life is as gilded as we might think when we're watching from the outside. And it kind of made her have this aha moment of being a little bit more compassionate and a little more selfless when it comes to how she relates to others. So it was a fun story, and I really enjoyed it. The ending was very satisfying. Like, there was nothing about this book that I could say that was bad. It was just, there was so much in there about like self-image and like respecting ourselves. And like one of the phrases that was used numerous times is I think it was something to the effect of like, everybody has a body, like there's no bad bodies, everybody has a body, kind of thing. And it was just talking about like kind of knowing that like people pass gas and people have body odor, and there are some people's bodies that are bigger than others, and like the standards of beauty aren't necessarily something that we need to always be trying to uphold, because the standards of beauty change from time to time, and like nobody can live up to what's considered perfect, because perfect is always changing depending, you know, on fashion trends and just all kinds of stuff. So I just felt that it was like a really relatable book, and again, a great way to kind of open up discussion of like, why do we hold certain standards as being what's considered good or bad. And it was just a very like real talk kind of book. So yeah. And then the final book this week that I want to talk about is called Hate Hex by Gina LaManna, and this one was tons of fun. It was kind of like a paranormal romance. There was a vampire and a witch that were the main characters, and the vampire is like this wealthy like real estate mogul, and he owns the building that the witch lives in, and they kind of have like a little bit of conflict with one another, a good deal of which has to deal with the fact that he wants to sell the property that she lives in, and she's lived there her whole life. The apartment has been passed down from like generation to generation. So she's living in this apartment in like a rent controlled situation, and she wouldn't be able to live where she does otherwise because the rent would be too expensive. And so she's kind of freaking out when she finds out that she's going to have to move because she won't be able to afford living anywhere else on the money that she currently makes. And once she loses like her rent controlled property, yeah, she's very upset about that. She's upset about the fact that like she's gonna have to leave the only home she's ever known. And the guy doesn't really seem to care about that. He just wants to offload the property because he's tired of the business dealings that he has to go through with sharing the property with his brother. And it's just a lot of craziness, like miscommunications between the two of them that cause a good deal of conflict, but then kind of enemies to lovers. They start seeing things from one another's perspective and have a little bit of compassion for the other. I really enjoyed all of the antics that came from Trixie, the main character, casting a hex on the vampire character whose name escapes me at the moment. She really does a doozy on him, and he's mildly amused by all of the kookiness that she came up with in her little hex. It was just a really fun book to read. It was very lighthearted, very light on the romance. Like, it was just a really fun story to read, so I enjoyed it. And if you're into, like, I don't know, just a lot of almost Hallmark kind of humor and kind of hokey, not real deep type of storylines, this is definitely one that you could pick up. It was just tons of fun and easy to read because you can just kind of tell the direction in which the story is going to go. I could definitely see this being turned into a movie. The movie in my mind definitely was a lot of fun to watch as I listened to this audiobook. I enjoyed all of like the descriptions and like just the fun silliness that happened in the story. It was very enjoyable. So a definite recommend from me for The Hate Hex by Gina LaManna. This one was a good one. Just been watching some of the same this week that we watch every week. We were definitely shook by things that happened on GH this week. I can't wait to see like the direction in which the storyline is going to take. I've been following a lot of stuff on social media in terms of the character of Drew and Cameron Matheson's portrayal of it, and how people are directing so much hate towards him. And all I can say is Cameron Matheson is an awesome actor, because from what I understand, he's like a super nice guy, but he is making Drew the most detestable character, which again, I'm going to say that speaks volumes to his talent and abilities as an actor, because that character is just so awful. And you really cannot find a single redeeming quality about the guy. I love to hate Drew, but I love to love Cameron Matheson, because whenever I see him in an interview or anything like that, I'm just like, oh, he's so awesome. Like, he's so funny and so like dynamic. So like I said, he's doing a great job of making Drew a very detestable character, and the actress that plays Willow does an awesome job of I guess you could say being a villain herself. Like, everybody always talks about her as being like this like delicate, weepy, so sweet and loving and caring, and poor Willow kind of thing. And lately she's been just terribly wicked, and it's fun to watch this character kind of like go from being like this super sweet teacher, and now she's a nurse, and like all of these things that like evolve through the character. And she's becoming kind of like a Nurse Ratched, from what I understand of like the way the direction the storyline is going to go. So I think it'll be fun to watch the story evolve. Again, loved Will Trent this week. Tim and I really like watching this show. The character of Will Trent is so much fun. All of like the other supporting characters through the story are a lot of fun. Again, we like to see like the progression of the storyline. We love the canine character of Betty. She's like one of our favorite parts of the story of Will Trent. So the fact that she had like a huge part in the storyline this week was a lot of fun. Shifting gears, I was so happy to see Jesse Williams have a character on that show. He's one of my favorite actors, coming from Grey's Anatomy and all of that. And I just love to see like how he can portray so many different kinds of roles. Like I really enjoyed Shifting Gears this week. Obviously 911 Nashville were both really good this week. Grey's Anatomy has like ups and downs in the storylines here and there. I feel like right now some of the storylines are moving kind of slowly, so we'll see how the season progresses over the next few weeks. But I still enjoy the show. It's one of my favorites, has been for a very long time, so I'm going to keep staying loyal to my show. I really enjoy Grey's Anatomy. And then something else that I've watched this week is the docuseries called Dirty Talk, about all of the talk shows of the 90s. I was a teenager in the 90s, and really loved watching like Jerry Springer and Maury Povich and all of the like Ricky Lake, all of those shows that were on daytime TV, like come home from school and sit down with Ricky Lake and just see all of the drama that would unfold on there, and watching this docu-series about those shows and like the phenomenon that was 90s daytime talk is interesting, having lived through like being one of those like avid watchers and seeing how things evolved. And yeah, it's been quite interesting. I really have been enjoying this documentary about those shows. And like, I don't know, I'm just one of those people, like I watch reality shows and I know that it's like trash TV, but it's like a train wreck. You can't look away. Like I have to watch those shows. So yeah. And then the last thing that we watched this week was Thursday Murder Club on Netflix. It was interesting because I didn't think Tim would enjoy it as much as he did, and he was really enjoying. I mean, so many of the characters are like 3 times his age, so maybe not quite that much older than him, but definitely, you know, like his grandparents' age. So it was interesting to see like what he took away from that particular movie, and the fact that we both really liked it, and we looked at each other and said, Grandma both loved this. So we're gonna have to sit down sometime and let my mom take a watch of Thursday Murder Club, because I think she would enjoy it. And now I kind of almost want to go back and read the book that the movie was based on, because I think it would have been a good read had I picked it up before I watched the film. So there's that. And then life this week, whew, let me tell you, baby, it is cold outside. Yesterday and today, all I can do is hear the furnace running all day long. It's so cold out there that like your face hurts when you walk outside. So we've definitely been staying in quite a bit, and we're supposed to get snow this weekend. So yeah, winter has definitely not let go of its death grip that it has on us. I will for sure be looking forward to the warmer weather that's going to be coming in like 2 or 3 months. Winter is here, and it's like I said, it's got a death grip on us. So hopefully things warm up slightly as the week progresses. Getting negative temperatures overnight and then the wind chill factor added in, ooh, it's brutal. I will be looking forward to bare minimum at least some sunshine that can at least trick my brain into thinking that we're experiencing better weather than we are. So yeah, that's my week in a nutshell. And if this is your first time here, I'm glad you stopped by to take a listen and a watch of what's going on, and hopefully you enjoy what you've seen and heard. If you do, go ahead and hit the like button. If you want to come back for more, hit subscribe and ring the notification bell so that you can know when I post new videos. And for those of you that have been coming back week after week, I definitely appreciate when you stop by, drop a comment, and just keep coming back week after week. I appreciate all the support, and until next week, take care.